real estate kind of generates in people's mind when they start thinking about whether to invest in real estate, whether to buy a real estate, whether now's the time to buy real estate. All those things uh, are obviously running through many people's minds, and some of them it paralyzes them. Others, well, they're doing it anyway, as activity still remains pretty brisk in the real estate market. It still remains to be seen how the moratoriums and those things will play out in the new year. But by all accounts and everything that we seem to see, there's enough demand right now in the marketplace that it will probably be noticed. It'll probably be talked about, but it probably won't do too much to the marketplace itself. And that's probably good news also, because that means that the values are pretty intact, that it will be pretty steady sailing moving forward. That's good news. And so, as a result of that, I think we're really in a great position looking forward into the new year. And so, I hope that you're going to keep it right here as we move into our 23rd consecutive year here on the Real Estate Show. We'll be doing it for as long as we have listeners and we have the interest and the kind of feedback that we're getting. I think it behooves us to keep it going, and we want that to be the case from both sides. Now, the other thing that we could be talking a little bit about, well, we will be talking for sure a lot more, especially on the other side of the new year as we ramp up for our Fearless First Time Homebuyer Workshop, already scheduled. It is set for January 11th, 7:30 p.m. Space available only. So if you want to come and find out what we're talking about with some of the new programs that are available for financing, how you can buy for less than what you can rent for, how you can take advantage of this appreciating market, how to avoid, and this is probably just as important, maybe even more, how to avoid the 7 biggest mistakes that first-time home buyers encounter or commit. And so we hope that works out and fits into your schedule. January 11th, 7:30 p.m. It will be online, so you can attend it from wherever you are, but you can only attend it if you get in, and you can only attend it if you text the word or the letters DPA. That's for down payment assistance. One of the key pieces of that puzzle is text that to our text line, our dedicated text line. So you can do it right now. You won't be calling the radio station. You'll be simply texting to our dedicated text line at 561-861-2366. That's 561-861-2366. Now, another really interesting topic, as I was thinking about, how to end the year on a high note. And there's a couple of things that I really wanted to talk about. And as you know, if you're a regular listener of the radio show, you know that we have more to talk about than we have time to share it in, which is why we do these workshops. So you can expect in the coming year, we're going to be releasing a couple of new workshops. We got a whole bunch of surprises. So you definitely want to hang with us. We might let the cat out of the bag on a couple of them, starting in the last week of December. We'll be talking about all things, some really impressive things that we've got cooking for, credit hacks. We've got some really neat things to talk about, 1031 exchanges. And that's one of the things that I was even thinking, because a 1031 exchange investment could be your smartest move for 2022 and beyond. And so we'll talk a little bit about, for those of you who don't know what a 1031 exchange is, it is the ability to sell a property, not pay the taxes on it now, defer it into the future, and roll all of the gain into your next property of equal or greater value. So we'll talk a little bit about why you should consider 1031 exchange. If you're looking to move around your real estate, maybe improve your real estate, maybe diversify your real estate, these are all great reasons why to use a 1031 exchange. And a lot of savvy investors do that so that they can keep pushing, their gains into their next property and not to the tax man. So that's one thing. The path to home ownership, man, we have some really, really dynamic things coming down the pike here. We'll be talking about that a lot in these last 2 weeks, but we're going to talk about now how to convert a rent into an ownership. Now, that creates equity. And what's really neat in this process, we're doing something that I don't know anyone else out there that's doing, is that we have figured a way of how to transform your rent into equity payments. Think about that. So much have we gotten this now recognized that we now can even take last 12 months payments and transform them onto your credit report. In fact, we have now successfully done it 24 months back. So if you had zero credit or bad credit, what if you had, let me say it this way, if you had good payment history on your rent, maybe nothing else, guess what we can bring onto a credit report and now get you started with positive credit. Nowhere else will you hear this kind of stuff, which is another reason why you want to attend that workshop that we're having on January 11th. And you can do so by texting the 3 letters DPA to 561-861-2366. And I got a third subject that I'm going to talk about. So 2 of these will probably get discussed during the last 2 weeks. And one of them will roll forward into the next year. So you'll just have to keep listening to the Real Estate Show. But I'm going to talk about the third subject when we come back from this break. It's time for our mid-show break, a little opportunity for a few words from our sponsors. So don't touch that dial. You're listening to the Real Estate Show, one of the last real estate shows of 2021. So don't touch that dial. We'll be right back. Good question, Susanna. So the 1031 exchange portability is a big difference, right? The portability is available only to someone who homesteads their property. And the 1031 exchange is available only to investors. So if you're an investor, the 1031 is a very important thing to understand and know is available, and then when to pull the trigger on one. Portability is very important if you're moving your personal homesteaded residence. So good question. Thank you, Susanna. My cat loves to jump on my desk. So while I'm in the middle of my working, he'll come and he'll just sit like right in the middle of my work. And I found out a way to politely get rid of him. Coffee. My cat does not like coffee, likes tea, and will even steal some of my tea. But coffee, he'll turn his head and he'll give me space when there's coffee there. Ooh, ah. Coming back. And welcome back. For those of you just joining us here on the Real Estate Show, South Florida's #1 program about real estate. And I might remind you, America's longest running daily radio show. I've had a great question. In fact, I wanted to share that question because it was a very good one. I was talking about a 1031 exchange, and that could be an entire week's topic. We could talk about, like usually on Mondays, we talk about our Mondays on a mission. We do the definition, we explain the concept and sort of lay the foundation for the rest of the week. Tuesdays, the tools, tips, and techniques, when we could take the 1031 exchange and talk about when to use it, how to use it, what you have to do. There's a process when you decide to sell it. You can't close and then decide to do that. You have to decide before you close. And there's some cool tricks. There's even some very nifty ideas where you can actually do what's called a reverse 1031. And so it like I said, it's a very good topic to talk about. But normally speaking, you have to, once you decide, you have to let your title company know, and you have to find what's called a third-party custodian, because you can't touch the money. Otherwise, the minute that you touch the money, it becomes taxable and no longer is a 1031 exchange available. But if you identify before the closing, then you have to have and give it enough time. When I say any time before, some custodians will get the job done, but they're not happy about it. Give them at least a week, if not more. Then what you do is that you now will identify and instruct the title company. They get special instructions that when it closes, the money goes to the custodian to hold until it rolls into the next property. Now you have a certain number of days to identify the next property, and then you have a certain amount of time once you've identified, and you can identify more than one. I think it's up to 3 that you can identify right now, and you have to close on one or a combination of them before your time expires. So the 1031 could easily take up the entire week. Wednesdays, we always go out into the field and look about how those are being used. And this particular time of the year is particularly active in the 1031 exchange because you're trying to lock in locations and cost bases for tax years, etc. The 1031 exchange is a very, very interesting. You can Google it and look it up and get a little bit of background. And depending on the feedback I get after today's show, and you can contact us at automaticlandlord.com. We always love getting the messages there. You can contact us on our Facebook Live right now. We've got folks on there that we're commenting and having conversations in the breaks, and I can proactively or interactively converse with our Facebook Live folks there. And then I talked about the fearless first-time home buyers. I wanted to talk a little bit about lease ownership. And this is also a unique and different concept that is being used by some pretty smart investors and homeowners as well. Now, during the break, Susanna, who's a regular listener, was asking the question is, what's the difference between a 1031 exchange where you can take your basis with you and defer the taxes, and portability? And it was a great question because they are very different in who they're targeted to. For example, a 1031 is for investment property. So it's not for your personal residence. That's where portability comes in. And portability, as you may know, and this varies from state to state, so I'm going to say this in very general terms, but what happens is that you get to take your original basis in your personal residence, and this is, for example, in Florida, and you can, when you sell the property, you get to take your tax basis with you to the next property, which can save you a ton of real estate taxes on an annual basis as you do that. The 1031, on the other hand, can do sort of the same thing, but different. And what it's doing is taking your tax basis of the property and then rolling it forward. And the big deal about that one is it allows you to defer paying the income tax, and one is property tax, portability, one is income tax, 1031. and you can take all of the money that you would have paid in taxes and put it into your next property and pay it later. And sort of, it's kind of an interest-free a way to move and defer your taxes. So that's a really neat advantage. And so that is that subject. The other subject, and in fact, I even have a third one. I'm going to come back. But the first-time home buying is so important, and we're going to talk about credit repair in that January 11th. And on our Facebook Live pages, the phone numbers, the text, and the code that you send, and it's DPA 561 861-2366 is a dedicated text line. That's 561-861-2366, and just text DPA to reserve your spot. Then we're going to, because at that January 11th online free workshop that we're going to be having, we're going to talk about work for equity programs. I haven't heard about that in a long time. And it's kind of neat because you, as a first-time home buyer, might actually even be able to do some work in lieu of down payment. Think about that, especially for you handy people out there. There's other different types of bonus credits that we'll talk about, and those are based on timely payments and special promotions that come and go depending on different offerings. You've got the what was the other one? A family down payment assistance. A little bit different than the DPA is the FDPA, and there's a whole bunch of DPAs out there. Again, why we don't have time to go into the details of each one of those, because then you could call it, it's not official thing, GDPA, but there are government down payment assistance. So FDPA, GDPA, and just DPA in general is what we're saying to text to that text line. And then also talking about special tax maneuvers, think about using 401k money, IRA money can be used for down payment, therefore launching you ahead of schedule and making you able to buy that first-time home buyer, plus other sources that we'll talk about in that webinar. Now, another thing that I wanted to talk about, and that's why, like I said, I want to get some feedback, and I've got 3 or 4 different subjects to talk about in the last 2 weeks of the year. And it really is going to be up to you, the listeners, depending on the feedback that I get. And the other thing that hasn't been talked about in a long time, and especially going into a brand new first year, are the 7 steps to a profitable marketing campaign. And especially those people who are buying property now, this could be super, super helpful. I mean, you wouldn't go on a trip without consulting a map, without getting specific directions on how to get there. You know, nowadays with GPSs, maybe people are a little bit more lackadaisical, but when it comes to taking a trip, let's say a vacation, you can't just GPS your way to Europe, right? You've got to make travel plans. You've got to make reservations. You've got to plan it out. And just the same thing in a business, you got to have a business plan. And with real estate, same thing. And even a business plan has another plan within a plan known as the marketing plan. So you got to have a marketing plan, because here's the truth of the matter. Random marketing produces random results. And that's not what a business is all about. Remember, what a business really is a system, right? The reason that a business is a business, and be quite frank, even if you're doing something that makes money, if there isn't a system, it's not a business, right? It's an activity that generates money, but it's not a business, because if you stop doing what you're doing and then walk away, everything stops. There's no business there. But in order for you to be able to teach somebody to do what you do when you go away on vacation, you got to set up instructions. You got to have a plan, then turn it into a system. And then that system that can run itself or be run by other people, which you run those other people, that is what a business is. So like I said, random market equals random results. So you got to have a marketing plan. And you got to have and a plan, of course, right? Has specific items to do specifically in specific amounts during a specific amount of time. So, we like to sort of plan things in terms of 8 to 12 week marketing plans. They could be targeted at motivated sellers, divorce, deaths, estate, and wills and probates. You could go after a number of different targeted markets, but if you don't have a targeted market, again, random target equals random results. And so this is another thing that I wouldn't mind spending an entire week on, talking about that for the purpose of those out there listening to us who want to get into the investing. You're going to hear a lot more about investing from, we're going to give out the instructions, in a lot of ways. We're going to talk about, putting together a mastermind, an off-air mastermind for the people who want to get really serious about this. Because I think that 2022 is going to be a phenomenal. If you missed the boat in 2021, there is a second chance in 2022. And if you do it right, think about the people who invested in real estate in 2004, 2005, 2006, right up until 2007. If they did it right, they're still real estate investors today, just like us. If they did it wrong and they missed one key requirement, and one key requirement only would have done them in. But if they had that under control and they had this one key requirement, they'd still be here today and enjoying the real estate show in its 23rd consecutive year. Maybe some of those investors have been investing for 23 years or longer because they understand that one key thing. So the marketing plan, we laid out weeks 1 through 8 or 1 through 12, depending on how fast or how big or how wide or how specific. And then we use multiple mediums or methods to get in front of those clients. So let me know, because I'm going to hit the ground running tomorrow on our Tuesdays tools, tips, and techniques. I think I've laid enough little foundations here that I can run the rest of the week on either one of those. So let us know. You can do that at automaticlandlord.com. Don't forget to text DPA to 561-861-2366. And you can let us know that you want to reserve a spot for our January 11th workshop. Well, that's it. That's all the time I got for today. I'll be back again here, same place, same time. Until then, this is your host, Eric Willner, saying drive safe and make it a great day. Bye-bye. All right. Thank you. Turn that off. Turn that off. And Suzanne, again,